One is the high board kinds, and these are actually the most common of king high or ace high. These actually make up 40% of the boards. Does anyone know why that might be? King high boards, ace high boards. Why do you think that is that they make up most of the different kinds of boards? Because all you need is one card to be the highest card, right? Now you have 3 chances for the highest card. And because it's just a really high likelihood that an ace or king is going to come out between all those, and that's just going to be the highest card, right? Whereas if you think about it, okay, to get a jack high board, you've got to miss the chance of ace or king coming in order to get a jack high board. Button versus big blind. Ace, king, 5. Who has the nuts here more? I think you guys know that. That's pretty simple. It's that the button has the nuts more. The big blind just calls a raise. And to be clear, this is a single raised pot. So it means that the big blind has called a raise. And now we're seeing a flop. There's no 3-bet, none of that shit. And of course, the button has more nuts here. We know why that is. How many draws does the button have here? Does anybody have any guesses? Meaning flush draws in this case. We'll break them down just to give you guys an idea, like what percent of the various ranges people actually have. I think if we include all those gut shots, we're going to get to like 30%. But the flush draws themselves, I think, is going to be closer to 10%. So depends a lot on how we're going to look at things. I actually have this opened up here. The breakdown. So the flush draw is actually only 5% of the time. That's useful to know. Flushes are harder to make than you guys might think. Flush draw nuts. Okay, so gut shots are about 10%. Draws are not really a huge percent of the overall range. Yeah, air is about 50% of the time. Top pair, about 20%. You guys can really use your intuition for the top pair. But that's like one of the big things. This is for button anyway. This is a board that we do overbet because we do have the range advantage. And, we have a pretty significant range advantage. We have quite a few more nuts in comparison to the big blind. That being the main reason. For the other ones, I'll quiz you guys a little bit on the size, but generally speaking, the sizes have a lot to do with making certain parts of the ranges indifferent. And they can have something to do with the range advantage also. But that would be a big factor for this one for what to see bet. Let's take a look at the big blind. I don't want to show the full strategy, just like the different kinds of hands that the big blind has. I'm curious, by the way, how many of you knew that the button had about 20% top pairs?
I'll be honest, I thought I was going to be, in that option 10%, because I was just remembering like to flop a pair is like 1 in 3. So if there's 3 different pairs on the flop, like to have top pair would be more like 1 out of 9, which is like 11%. So I was like, oh, it's probably 10%. So to have double that amount, maybe because he's raising it, maybe narrows the range. But I thought it was going to be closer to like 10%, but I guess that's 20.
I think it'll be closer to that for different boards. For ace-high boards, that's not likely to be true because we have lots of ace-x in the range. We've got all the ace-x, right? So when an ace comes, we have that all out. But we don't have all the 9x, for example. The original raisers like far less likely to have the 9x, etc. That's like important for thinking of how to exploit the 9x. And then the button has a big blind. Even the big blind has 18% top pairs. Flush draw, big blind, yeah, unsurprisingly, the big blind does have a bit more flush draw, 6.3%. Do you guys have any idea why that might be? This board actually, it should be closer to equal than some other boards. Yeah, it should vary a little bit.
He will probably raise a lot of aces and kings, so he has a lot of the lower flush draw cards that he's just calling with, so that's why he has like slightly higher percent.
Actually, yeah, the fact that he 3-bets would raise the overall percent of flush draw, so there's that, because button doesn't have that problem. I didn't think of that, but I was thinking of the second reason you gave, which is the big blind does have all the suited low flush draws that the button doesn't necessarily open, but the button opens still quite a few flush draws. So one thing to keep in note is that the big blind often has loads of flush draws in a lot of these spots because, of course, they defend the suited hands. And one funny thing that you guys may not have noticed is The third pairs are less frequent than both the second pairs and the top pairs. And the top pairs are actually most frequent. This shows, again, that we don't have all the offsuit combos of many of these other sorts of pairs. And it's important to notice because this is also probably a reason why the machine likes to overbet, because we really want to target this ace-x range. And this 5x range is like not that common. But yeah, there's like a solid difference between ace-x, king-x, and that's good. That idea is going to be important for developing other kinds of strategies against other sorts of ranges, because sometimes the players just have all sorts of shit, or like really weak shit. Just because they have like ace highs instead of middle top pair sorts of things.
If you happen to play some live poker, you got to know what the rake is, you got to know what realistic win rates are, you got to know this kind of stuff. Speaking of which, on the Jungleverse, we provide many resources to help many of you up-and-coming players in order to avoid many pitfalls that many people play, also to avoid getting cheating. We provide some details of what to look out for. We have a map of what the best online sites are to play at and why, and what kind of games you're looking for. If you want to try your luck and try to strike it rich, playing tournaments, why not? The math's a bit against you. We have the resources for that too.
You think it would be a big mistake to range to bet for small sides instead of just solar bets?
No, I don't think so. We can check. So we'll change this to what is it? What's 25%? No, not that.
1.8.
Really? Okay. That sounds like 30%. 1.5. That's close enough.
Cool.
So change it to 1.5 and see what happens. Right now, it's at 3.22 for the button. Yeah, and you could do this for your overall strategy. I don't know if I recommend it necessarily. It takes away 0.07 at EV. I don't think that's a huge deal. It's on the high end for a size change.
Does your frequency go up a lot if you bet smaller? Like, will it be like almost like 100% small bet if you go for the small bet?
It looks like no.
Oh,
But it should go up by quite a bit, though, for sure. That's normal. Yeah, it looks like you lose a little bit of value by doing that. But if for whatever reason people play terribly versus this, it could make sense to do that. I might choose something slightly different. See how that works. I've heard of such people doing approaches like that. Yeah, the answer to this question is 20%. 20% is top pair for the button. And the big one has about 11% small pairs. Button doesn't have so many small pairs also. Top pairs are most common by quite a bit. It's about 15%, which I thought it was more than that actually, so I didn't even know that. Another thing that we have noted here is the button has the nuts about 3 times as likely as the big one does, at least at first. So that would be a big reason why we're overbetting. Touched you guys on the other one. I actually think it's going to be hard to guess the c-bet sizes, but it's not a huge deal if you're off, just to know what kind of roughly the amount of money that's put in overall on all the streets is good enough when you're playing against not so great competition. If you're playing against top level competition,